Welcome back to the Crypto Rainn channel. Today is Thursday, and we have on our special co-host with us on Thursdays, Paul from Definity. Now, Paul is a price expert, so if you think about technical analysis, one of the aspects of technical analysis is reading price and price analysis, and Paul has been doing this for 30 years. Now, part of our goal is to create the most informed audience in crypto, and we bring Paul on because he helps me learn every single time he's on, and hopefully he's helping you learn how to look at it from a price analyst point of view on what's going on in the charts, how to read it. He makes his trades off of those charts as well as there are very savvy investors who turn to Paul for advice on this. So we're very blessed to have him on this channel, and we're grateful that he comes and joins us for the show every Thursday. Well, let's go ahead and get this party started because I'm excited to have Paul on today. There's a lot to talk about. Join me, Rainmakers. Fantastic. So we've seen Bitcoin break out and do some amazing things and liquidate a whole bunch of longs. And what is going to happen next? That's what's on all of our minds. And who's excited to hear from Paul on all this stuff? Because I know I am. We are just getting some things switched around so we can bring Paul on and hear the audio. All right. I think we're ready. Let's do this. Paul, are you there?
I am indeed. Yeah, it's great to be here. Interesting times, interesting times.
Absolutely. So, wow, what a strong push up through some strong resistance levels, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we were looking for a break upwards, I think last couple of weeks. We've been trying to find a low, like tentatively, carefully, because obviously it was quite a volatile market. We wanted the volatility to drop and it to break upwards. We didn't subscribe to the view that the market was going to completely collapse. We thought the technical setups were more of a correction, but we needed some confirmation, and we got that confirmation. So it doesn't look like the market will just keep going soaring higher to new highs in a straight line here. I think this will be a consolidation phase for a bit, but it's certainly much more bullish than we've seen, in previous weeks. And and I think there'll be some great opportunities within the range to sort of play it in and out from a short-term perspective as well. But it augurs well for the big picture and for, this big rally that you've been talking about and we've been talking about at some point this year. So, yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it does seem to confirm that we were right on that, because if Bitcoin had broke all the way down to 10,000, it's like, okay, I would have to say I don't know what's happening here. And so my picture of what was going to happen is very different from what's happening. Yeah. But it's still staying within my thesis that, yeah, it broke down to about 33,000. It's now blasted up to about 43,000 through some strong resistance levels. So it seems like Bitcoin wants to make some things happen. Now, the last couple of days have been also peppered with very good bullish long-term news for Bitcoin. So, yeah, it's really interesting to see how this year plays out. And if it plays out like I thought it will, we'll see. Usually I'm right. In fact, often I'm right. I'm just not always right. Close, though.
Or eventually right.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm wrong before I'm right. And what that means is the time frame happens a little bit longer than I hope it will happen.
Yeah, well, look, the markets are the trickiest thing to call in the world. So, if you get things better than 50%, you're doing very well. And, and sometimes the market is unclear and other times it's really clear. You have to just be there all the time to, see the differences between the two. So I'm sure we're going to see an excessively bullish phase in the same way that we saw an excessively bearish phase recently. And like, as you've seen in your cycles, this is perfectly natural. But perhaps if I put some charts up, we could have a look at the actual levels that are broken and see perhaps where the markets might move from here. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's dig into that. For those viewers, just want to remind you that this is not financial advice. We're not financial advisors here. We're crypto investors ourselves, and Paul invests in actually very many markets, and he gives great perspective on all these different markets, which is awesome to have him on and sharing his thoughts on all these different markets. So it's not financial advice. We're just investors ourselves sharing with you what we think is happening with the market and our thoughts on it. Let's jump right into it.
Yeah, well, you know, thank you first of all for saying that, because it's absolutely right. I think people should learn to make their own decisions. It's not that I don't want you to copy anything that I'm saying. I want you to make your own mind up. But I'm just telling you what I see, and you know, trying to navigate the market in, you know, given the signals that are appearing. And sometimes it's an if-then situation, as we've seen. It can be a bit like computer trading. If it breaks this, then the market does this. If it breaks this, the market does that. Other times it's really clear. It's just like, wow, this is going up and it's just going to accelerate. So what we've had happen very recently, so we were talking about the market basing out down here. There was a Fibonacci level trend line support. It did go through aggressively, but it turned around so fast that it was showing me that there was good support here. Now, what we wanted to break is this 39,576, which we said last week was the key level. Why was it key? Because it bounced here last time and then again. So it's 1, 2, and then just went through it like a knife through butter on the downside. But look what it did on the upside. It completely reversed that. So this is good symmetry. So what I think will happen here is a bit of symmetry again. We see a retracement back down, maybe a move perhaps up to 47, like the late 40s, and then a correction back down again as the market, whoever was smart enough to buy down here, says thank you very much and starts to exit positions. And then I think the market will go sideways. Now, that's a lot of me telling the market what it should do going forward. At the moment, it's just quite bullish, given that it's broken out these two really key levels, the 39,576 and the 42,000 were the two main levels that I needed to break to confirm that this was just a correction and it wasn't going to start to turn into or roll into this big top that we said was like the alternative view. But the big level before we get really excited and start talking about new highs is this 53,409 or 54,000. So it still has got this one big barrier to get through, this last one, before we get super excited for a massive rally. So I think it will go sideways before it takes that on. I could be wrong, of course. Anyone could be wrong, and that might not happen in that way. And you know, of course, this could just be a correction before it goes down very aggressively. But at the moment, this is a really good sign for a consolidation, which is going to be a wide consolidation before the market moves higher. So, and what's interesting is the other markets are moving as well. Like everything in the major seems to be moving. And I know you wanted to have a look at some of the majors before we move to the audience picks. So perhaps I could, you know, quickly look at those. So if we start with ETH,
let's do it.
Yeah. So ETH. Now look at this. This is really interesting. It has stopped right on our trend line. So you know, these were the resistance lines that we were drawing in. Now, the more aggressive the line, the more chance the market will break it. And it's not particularly significant if the market breaks a very aggressive or steep resistance line, because it means the market's falling fast, and a rally doesn't necessarily change a trend, but it is a sign that the market is turning. So these dotted lines are the market's turning and rallying against the trend. But we really needed this 29.51 level, which we mentioned last week, to break, to confirm that this, again, in a similar way to Bitcoin, was a correction rather than a continued move down. So this is a very decent rally, very decent indeed. But it's got at this crossroads. So we've got the crossroads of this broken resistance line. I like to leave them in because when support lines like this break, they often act as an inverse. So what was support then becomes resistance. So we've got two resistance points here. We've got the actual natural trend line resistance here, and we've got this upward trend line here, right where the market is now. So it might put the brakes on a bit of this move, you know, for a little bit of a pullback. Might even come back towards this 29.51. I'd rather it didn't. It's still got this 33.23 level here, which we've put in there, and the moving averages, both are converging. So this is the 60-day and the 200-day moving averages that are coming in and converging together. So there's loads of resistance coming up here. So I actually think what it will do is hang around here, maybe push up for one more little move. The short-term players will say, thank you very much, exit their positions. We'll get a bit of a correction, and then we'll go sideways for a bit. But again, the bigger picture is still much more bullish, given that we've broken these good levels. And I'd like to see this trend line break as well. But before we start talking about new all-time highs, this 40-30 level up here needs to break. We will get an early warning at this 35.73. That is a very, very good resistance level. You see 1, 2, those 2 points there will tell us when it takes that out, we can start talking about new all-time highs. But for the moment, this is a really good rally. Now,
so Paul, a question.
Yeah.
Of the different blue chips out there, were there any that caught your attention as like you're liking the pattern, really liking the pattern where it's at?
Yeah, I mean, Solana, I liked last week because it was hitting a support resistance level. This looked key, and so I was thinking that was pretty good for a bounce. But structurally, I will stick with the MATIC stock because, again, this was. We had a view on one of our video channels, Definity, when we were talking about we had a viewer ask whether this was a head and shoulders top, because this looked like a head and shoulders, which is usually a trend ending signal. They said, will this turn into a big downward trend? And the answer was, look, this is a head and shoulders, but it's within a range. And a head and shoulders pattern is at the end of a trend. It means that you're going to see a massive reversal. Now, it didn't mean that the market wouldn't go down, and it did go down, but what it also meant was it would come back to it quickly, and then the trend would continue. So I've mentioned a few times that I like the structure of this particular chart because it's always been in an ascending trend. And I'll just move something out of the way so I can go to a weekly chart. So what it's really important thing to do is to take a step back and look at the big picture. And if you look at the big picture, the trend becomes much clearer. So this is a really sharp upward trend. And this whole area here I see as a massive, what's called ascending triangle. Now, an ascending triangle has a resistance point, a support, another resistance point, which is close to the prior resistance point, another support that's higher than the previous resistance point, but eventually we get a breakout through the high and an aggressive move higher. So this is why I continue to like this chart here, because it looks broadly much more bullish than some of the other charts. So if I flip back to Bitcoin here, you can see, yes, this is actually looking far more like a continuation structure than it was before. But this has got to do a lot more work, and it's a lot more volatile within this range, whereas MATIC is slightly more compressed. And when you're looking at corrections or pauses in trends, you don't want them to be too volatile. Otherwise, people get shaken out, as they've just got shaken out with Bitcoin. So there was less chance of getting shaken out here. So my question is, why are people holding this, more perhaps? I mean, look, percentage terms, it's moved massively, right? So of course, you have to take that into account. But on the technical structure, this market hasn't moved down as much as Bitcoin. And therefore, I like it as a major for a potential breakout. I mean, I also still like Decentraland, which I seem to always talk about. But this, it would be the first one that I would say structurally looking very good.
Yeah, fantastic. I agree with your analysis there. You're fundamentally behind the scenes. There's a lot going on with MATIC that they're getting a lot of the newer blockchain games launching their NFTs and other parts of their stuff on Polygon because it's just so much cheaper than Ethereum. There's an important narrative is sustainability and the ESG side of things, and so it just uses a lot less resources to process transactions on the Polygon network or MATIC network, and so that it's favorable there. And so what you're seeing is people are a lot stronger with their positions there, and they didn't panic sell. Right, you saw a lot more panic selling of Bitcoin than you did of MATIC, and that just shows a lot of strength there.
Yeah. So what I'm looking for is relative strength and how the broader structure of the market is unfolding. So, for example, I think when we were talking about, when everything looked really bad, Mana, to me, was still in a very strong upward trend because it had broken out to this upside, come back as a correction, but it was still structurally within a bullish move. Now, I could be wrong, of course, and I might be wrong on MATIC as well, and it wouldn't be the first time. So, but structurally and technically, I can only view what's in front of me, and that's how it looks. So it looks interesting.
Yeah, as an investor, we just play the odds, and every once in a while, you could have an 80% chance of winning and still lose. But because none of us have magic crystal balls yet, we're just playing the chances and better odds.
Absolutely.
Awesome. What other ones? Anything else? We could look at the mana chart if you would like. That definitely falls in the blue chip category. In fact, that's the biggest of the blue chips within the metaverse plays.
Yeah, I queued up some of the audience picks very quickly. So I just get them a couple of minutes before the show. So, and I don't mind seeing them sort of as a first view, because partly partly what is good about analysis is your initial view on a chart for me is usually the best view, because what you do is you have like you have an initial view and then you talk yourself out of it. So so that's why I like to just see it immediately and then not have any preconceptions about where it might go. So this is the Mana chart, which actually doesn't look quite as good as the Sandbox, which has always been your favorite one. And so this is a really strong breakout. And in the correction, this correction managed to hold over the top of the prior trend. So this is a bullish, or what we call an impulsive trend. This is a corrective phase that it broke above the previous high. And look how it did it. It just went, straight up. So this is the correction that managed to hold over the previous view. So what you'd have is traders who say, okay, I'm going to buy it on this dip and bail out, because they're short-term traders, if it breaks below this 160 level. So you've got relatively small risk for a potential larger gain. So the downward trend here is broken, and we're now moving upwards in a new trend. Now, is this enough to take out the highs? I don't think it'll do it in a straight line. Well, it'd be great if it does, but I don't think it will. I think it will probably try and get up to this, this prior resistance here, which 3.96 here and here was massive resistance. And so if it can get there, then I think it will encourage so much profit taking that the market will come back down again. And then we'll see a consolidation, and then potentially after a few weeks, maybe months, but possibly a few weeks, we'll have a go at the highs. So yeah, I still like that. But we've got Sandbox as a request for this week, I think. So we can have a look at that as a comparison.
Yeah, why don't we look at that next, if that's okay? Because I put it as the number 2 blue chip in the metaverse plays.
Yes.
And I am more bullish on the long term. Just I'm seeing more partnerships continue to come online between them than I am with Decentraland. Decentraland was first, though, and there is some value to be first.
Yeah.
First often wins in the long term, but this whole space is big enough for there to be multiple winners.
Yeah, I think you're right there. And so what we've got going on here, just see if I can get a thicker line so you can see it. So this is the way Sandbox actually trades is the chart is a lot smoother than Decentraland. So I think technically maybe there's more volume or whatever it is. It looks nicer from a technical point of view, just aesthetically. But the breakout we've had here is this resistance point. So there are people who do short sell, and if they were going to short sell or exit their coins, it would be on this level here, which is 4.42, and it's now above that, so it's at 4.65, which is really good. So this is broken. It didn't have such an aggressive downward trend either. It was more a kind of rounded downward move, and then it's moving back up again. So this is coming into this range, and again, I think it would just consolidate. But the first step to a massive rally has got to be a move like this. So, long may it continue. But The next resistance point 6.9, that's where I think it could get a bit sticky, between 6.9 and 7.92. So those previous resistance points will be a barrier, and it probably won't take it out in one go. But I think, again, over the next few weeks, we'll just see it move up here, a bit of profit taking sideways, and then we'll have a go at it, in a few weeks' time. So that's looking good. And the overall trend, just to put it into context and why it looked different to the other markets, the overall trend is still up. So we can draw a nice trend line here from the lows that it hasn't breached. So that's the main trend line. That trend line's got to sit below all the price action. So we can draw another trend line here that sits below all the price action again on this accelerated move.
Yeah,
so
it keeps accelerating.
Yeah, and
or this is what we call a parabolic move, right?
Yeah, and so this support here was way above its prior support. So so the relative move here was the retracement was weaker. It got closer on Decentraland. It was more like around 1.48 equivalent compared to the previous major resistance point. So yes, it's looking good. And I guess I sympathize with people who say, it's already a really overvalued, potentially an overvalued coin. But then and I know from the world of real estate that what we thought was potentially an overvalued, housing market can go much further than we expect.
Yeah, it's gone like twice the price of what I thought was already overvalued.
Right.
And it's like, it's hard to call the end of that kind of thing, because sometimes it just leaves you in disbelief how high the prices sometimes can go on that. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this leg of the bull run takes things to prices that were even beyond what I could guess. So we'll see how it shakes out. It's going to be real fun. We're in the thick of it. This year's going to be a lot of fun to see where it's going. Now, you probably know this in the audience, but if you don't, I don't trade with leverage ever, so that it is a lot more fun when you don't trade with leverage. And I tend to try to identify projects that have a solid team, so that if I'm wrong, it usually just means it takes longer to do well, and that helps me sleep well at night with that system. And that I expect this year to be very, very bullish. But if for some reason I'm wrong, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means it's going to take longer than I thought usually on that, at least with like 80 to 90% of my picks. And so that's the system I use. Paul has amazing experience, so he's able to trade not just the crypto market, but all the markets out there. And it's been great over the weeks, him sharing kind of what's going on with bond prices. And what's funny is the correlation or inverse correlation that tends to have with crypto markets and other things, and just expanding our horizons there. Because if you get really good at trading price, then you can trade any market. You don't have to have such a deep fundamental knowledge. You see good indicators for getting in and getting out. And some people are really attracted to that side of things, and it's very helpful to understand and know. Why don't we take a look at, if it's okay with you, Luna. Now, Luna had a parabolic run, and it's having what always follows a parabolic run, which is a big pullback. And I try to caution our, we talked about Luna when it was going crazy, and it broke $100, and people were like, that's when everyone was talking about Luna. And I was like, well, yeah, it is a great time to take profits on Luna, because what goes up doesn't always stay going up, with at least even in a bull run without a correction. And it's had a pretty significant correction.
Yes. Well, again, this is a bullish-looking broad chart. So if we move it to the weekly, we can see that the trend is still up, and so I don't think we're at the end of that yet. So this correction is not a trend-ending signal, although anything that's around 100 psychologically can sometimes invoke a profit taking and a correction. So your instincts were good there. But again, it's been holding in at a fairly good support area. So we've had a consolidation here, and it's bounced in that area. It's not looking like it's made any sort of major top. I mean, there was like a double top there, but it does not look like an aggressive kind of trend ending signal to me. It looks more corrective. So I think that this is going to have another go at the upside in a very similar way to the rest of the market. I would like to see this 63 area taken out as confirmation, which I think it will do in this current move up. So we've had the first phase, bit of profit taking. So it should turn around, close over 60, break the 63 level. Then that would look much, much better, because it would also negate any idea that this could have been a double top. In a similar way to the head and shoulders in MATIC, it would invalidate that as a potential reversal. And size-wise as well, that doesn't look particularly large compared to the rest of the sort of corrective price action. So yeah, I think this is looking good for a move up, and I would like to see it consolidate here again, so it's kind of winds itself up for the next big move through eventually, 100, which I think it will do. I think it will break it, but I just don't think it will break it now.
Yeah, Luna's a very interesting one. It's actually using the Cosmos SDK, and the ecosystem is very different, and they have Anchor Protocol on top of it, which Anchor Protocol has been paying almost 20% interest rates on their stablecoin UST when you deposit it with them. Now, the challenge is they're about to run out of funds to continue at the rate of 20%. There's a proposal that's being voted on to extend essentially some of the founders' coins to beef up that fund to continue to pay the really high interest rates, because that's above where just about any place is paying. And I would say the whole Luna ecosystem, they're an experiment, because they have an algorithmic stablecoin that so far has been pretty stable, and the way that they're accomplishing that is really interesting, where you can sell Luna to get UST if the UST starts getting overvalued. Trying to explain it would be really not within my forte, how their algorithmic stablecoin works, but it's been working really well for a while, as well as the Luna ecosystem doesn't have a ton of projects on it. It has a few, but the few that it has on it are really, really strong ones. And so I like this ecosystem. When it hit lows in July, I did buy. I like to buy on big retracements. We've had a big retracement, went all the way to above 110. I think 117 was the highest I saw it, and now it's retraced to about half that. So that's a sizable retracement, and now possibly on its way back up. It'll be interesting to see if this one continues to function. It did survive some really heavy hits. There were a lot of people that were the stablecoin was looking kind of shaky on whether it would decouple from close to that dollar peg, and it survived that over the past couple of weeks, which was kind of a crucial point on will it survive this and do well, and it did perform pretty well. So yeah, thanks for looking at the price on that with us.
Sure.
Why don't we take a look at some of the other ones like Solana and Polkadot and Cardano?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'll go back to the trading view. So Solana, so this one is, again, I think we would put this in the category of it trading in a very similar way to Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let me just put that on auto so we can see it a bit better. So we have this the moving average, which crossed through last time January 21, so see over a year ago, and then it crossed to the downside here. So literally a year later, we got this break of the moving average, and it's acted as just very short-term resistance. But as far as the price action has gone, again, we were looking at the prior resistance point to act as support, which it worked as, and we've also broken. Now I can put this as a dotted line. So when a market breaks a line, it goes from solid to dotted to show that it's no longer holding the market. But the reason why I like to leave it on is because, as I say, it acts as support and resistance as well. So it's broken through that, which is great. It's got a bit of resistance here to still get through. And I know that Solana was one of those ones that was like a golden child. Everyone was talking about it and how great it was. So it's possibly had a bit of a bigger correction. because there may have been some late players coming into it, and that was possibly me as well. But I think the bigger picture is still looking good. So this, for me, is still a correction that I would like to see it get back up to this 140 area, which would be the next resistance line, which I think then would push it back down into this kind of range strategy before we start talking about a break of a new high. So there's a couple of steps before we could get super bullish on it. But this is the first step, breaking this trend line, getting back over the 200-day moving average, and holding good support, like solid support, was all very important. So this hasn't had that acceleration that some of the other markets have had. So they've moved up a bit in this very similar technical pattern, which is like a W, the double bottom. This is sort of moved up, and it's got a little bit sort of caught up here. I mean, see why, because of the moving average. But I still think this will sort of surge. I think it will have a couple of days of a sharp move, because these things tend to catch up. So they suddenly play catch up. And sorry, did you also say Cardano as well?
Yeah. Let's take...
Okay, so again, this one, wow. I mean, the solid support that had to held, thankfully, and that was here at the very thick line here, 0.92. So we were looking at a potential reversal around here, which we got drawn into it, and for good reason, because the market, we were trying to find a low. We knew that sometimes there's a few goes that you need to take to find a major low, and you don't always get it right. So the first point was here when it was holding the support. It rallied up, but then it failed. Then it was here when it rallied up again. This is a really good rally, and again, this prior trend line that broke acted as resistance, bang on, and it reversed it all the way back down. Now, was that expected? Not really, but that's shaken out a lot of people. I'm sure it's got to have done. So now it's very slowly picking itself up, recovering. And again, I think in terms of the broader market, this is a really good sign. It's held support. It might need to do a little bit more work and break this trend line for us to be really comfortable that things have turned around. Now, it might do that at the same time as breaking this resistance and this resistance, where it failed twice. So we know if it comes back to 1.64, it will have taken out the prior two places where the rally failed, and that will be a major signal. So I'd like to see it have a go at those levels in the next week or two, which should be possible given the way the market's trading. But ultimately, breaking this trend line would be a really good sign. So tentatively bullish for a push up. It's got scope to accelerate, but it was underperforming prior to the move down anyway. So hopefully this will reverse and start to outperform. But it's got to do a bit more work first.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who were scared and maybe newer at this got shaken out of their Cardano, and we saw that bigger drop the last little while. It seems like to me that it's ready to run. All right, let's take a look at some of the viewer picks, if that's okay. Some of these are ones we frequently talk about. Yeah,
absolutely. Thanks again, everybody, for your choices, because it's always good to see new markets and old ones and catch up on them. So the first one is this SHOPFX Cosmos. Is that right?
Cosmos is Adam. That was a different one of the viewer picks, Adam.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, sorry. Yeah. So should we look at this one, or do we?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it confuses me when the name is different to the code. So I didn't know which one this was. So this I really like this chart. I mean, this is really interesting for me because what we've got here is such a great build-up of resistance that when we get close to it, we get drawn to it. It will just be so bullish when it takes it out. So what I'm seeing here is a potential, what we call ascending triangle. Now, you've heard me say that a few times before, but if we look at the lows, see the low here, the low here, the low here, and the low here, they're all ascending. And so this correction, whilst everything was coming down, this corrected to this point and is still within this broader potential pattern. So let me just draw the other side of it in here. I think we can go from here. So yeah, so this is going to bounce between these 2 points and then break out to the upside. So this phase here should see it move up a bit higher, perhaps to 42. I don't know. I don't think it will take the high out in this phase. It would be unusual if it did. I wouldn't want it to also take out 25 on the downside, because that would mean there's a different sort of leg going on. If it does, I wouldn't be panicking until if it took out 20, then I'd be very upset about that. I don't think it would be looking good. But for the moment, the way it looks now, this is ascending, market's moving up, potential triangle. So that's very interesting. It's bounced in the right place. And after consolidation, if it can take out this 42 area, 42 to 44, we could be off to the races.
Yeah, I think Cosmos has a bright future. The Luna ecosystem was based on their Cosmos's SDK. And so it's getting used. A lot of times it's in there in the background of being a big part of the future of cryptocurrency's backbone, but so often not talked about. And so, yeah, I like what I'm seeing in those charts as well. For me, that's I like what's happening. Pretty much all that we've looked at for me is a buy. From a standpoint of, I think they're going to have a positive number of months. That doesn't mean it can't break out of that triangle to the downside. It could. The chances are against it doing that, but it could. And if it does, then I just wait longer, because I do think later this year we have some amazing things coming, and that we'll look back. I said on February 2nd that I think we'll look back at February 2nd as a day that we wish we could buy at those prices again. Later this year, we'll be looking back at that day and say, gosh, I wish we could buy at February 2nd's prices. So we'll see if I'm right on that. I'm pretty sure I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And so ShopFX then. That is
ShopX, yeah. No F in there.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So that is split. Okay. Yeah, so split.
For the viewers in the audience, if you want to make some suggestions for us to look at in next week's video, put them in the comment section below, not in the chat section. You actually have to bring up the comments and put them in there. And while you're at it, could you make it rain on that like button? We would greatly appreciate that.
Definitely. Yeah, it all helps for the algorithms. So this is one of those markets where I'm pretty sure we've said a few times, where I've said, well, look, the trend is down and I can't buy it until it shows confirmation, which, if I'm right, I think you've been saying you really like it. It could be this one. It might not be. But this is one of those ones where I've deferred to you for your fundamental views of how you think it will go higher. And this is a classic example of, I wouldn't have bought it down here because it looked too dangerous from a technical point of view. But somebody with the fundamentals who understands what's going on, token unlocks, or more about the project, will be sort of adding to their position and saying what a bargain. So great rally here, really good. This is great price action. It still needs to hold out and break through this resistance to confirm this low. But look, this downward trend is broken, and at the very least, we're going to see a consolidation, which is the first step to a major reversal. But if it's got a lot of aggressive buying behind it, we could take out these levels here, potentially. I mean, the high of the wick of the candles at 0.123. So that ultimately would be what we'd like to take out. That'd be the big sort of resistance level. But it's a big ask from the low to do that. So I think it's more likely to go sideways and then break it later on, in a couple of months' time. But first step is it's turned around. So, well done for anybody who's hung in there.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed in this one, because February 2nd and 3rd and 4th, I was making a lot of big pickups on these high-risk altcoins that I like the fundamentals on. And it was on my list to look at, and it had already gone up 30%. See, it started that little run like late January. Most of the other things waited till the 4th or 5th. And so I went to pick it up, and it was up 50% from its lows, and I was like, shoot. So I put in some buy orders, hoping it would come back to around the 6.5 cent range, and I even put one at like 7.5 cents, and it hasn't come anywhere back near there. And so maybe I'll get lucky and it will break down, maybe. If
Yeah.
not, like 10 cents isn't a terrible price either. I've been stocking up on it. I'd say my dollar cost average, because I already have a large bag of this, my dollar cost average is probably all the way at like 15 cents. I was just hoping to get a lot at these really cheap levels to bring that dollar cost average price down a whole bunch. And yeah, so I'm going to watch and see what happens on this and see if I think those buy orders are not going to go through. And if not, I'll just pay a little bit more for this than I wanted, though it's, in my opinion, really cheap right now. And I'll probably look back, you know, 6 months, in 6 months now, I'll look back and I'll laugh at myself for fudding, you know, like worrying about 6.5 cents versus 10 cents. But
Yeah,
I do like to buy cheap.
you can't, I mean, you can't, A, you can't buy everything, can you? And B, it's like, yeah, you know, I was cutting in while you were speaking because you said shoot, and I was thinking, I bet you didn't say shoot. I bet you said something else. But
Right.
what we would all say. But you know, you're also right that it looks like it's at the beginning of something rather than the end of something, and also, you know, nobody knows 100% when something's in a dive like that. It is very scary. There's no prior support to work from. And you have to be careful. And really, you got to know that the fundamentals are good enough to warrant even stepping on it, because you can step on a landmine. But you know, we shall see. Now, as I say, I think you will get a pullback, and then once it pulls back, it would be like, okay, have we got the confidence to buy into this? And if the technology is good, then yeah, why not? But yeah, that's a really interesting chart. So thank you for asking for that.
They're aiming to be a decentralized competitor to Shopify, so that's why it's SHOPX, right? And so
okay.
if they nail that, it'll be huge. And if they don't, they might still do well this bull run. They just probably won't survive the crypto winter that usually follows. But
Yes.
during the time period, I think they will hit it. They have a strong team. During the next 6 months, I expect them to do pretty well, and it will make this 24 cents that they went to look small if they do what I'm thinking. And then I'll probably take profits, maybe hold a tiny bit beyond that, but then kind of reassess during the big pullbacks of what we call the bear market or the crypto winter, and see which ones are still alive and pumping, and then rebuy in at hopefully basement level prices. That's the plan.
That's so interesting that you say that, like talking about the big picture and how, you know, because I think structurally this is the way the market looks. It looks like we're going to get one last big push when it eventually comes, and then there will be this big correction, and we'll be looking at the ones that survive. But we do need to see an extreme bullish move to confirm that, and we're probably months away from it. But it's interesting that you have the same kind of market structure that we're expecting to unfold from a technical point of view, just sort of as a broad strategy.
Yeah, I hope it plays out like this. I do pattern analysis, just from my mind does pattern analysis, and just kind of recognizing patterns, and these patterns play out over and over again. I don't have the background to really be able to do the price analysis at the depth you do. And so we appreciate you joining us, because that 30 years experience just is, amazing. And just looking at this, recognizing patterns that way on all the markets, because human emotion drives prices, right? Yes, there's some underlying fundamentals, but if you're really good on the technical analysis side, you can look at any market, see what's going on in the price, and understand some of what's going on a fundamental level without actually knowing a single thing about the fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the great examples of that in our time is, because when I talk to people about markets and say we're talking about gold, silver, or stocks or whatever, they will always say, well, there's a way to value them. But in our time, we now, I think the first time potentially in maybe in history, where we can prove that people will buy things that have absolutely no value, and they are meme coins. So meme coins have no value beyond what other people think they are. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to go up, because that doesn't mean that they won't go up and, make people very wealthy and some people very upset for missing the moves. But there's nothing underlying it other than the fact that somebody else wants to buy it. So, this is the psychology of markets. It's the psychology of of trading that is mirrored in absolutely everything. Now, the more volume that's traded, the more established that a market is traded. So say, for example, foreign exchange, the less influence one person can have on it, the more pure it becomes in terms of the price analysis. So this is where some of the smaller coins, and it's a good moment to mention that, can get pushed around for reasons of just an individual deciding, or a few individuals. So that makes it much harder to predict where they're going to go. But you know, that's the fun of choosing these smaller coins as well, because there's plenty of volatility there. But once the volume comes in, you know, like with the Sandbox, things have settled down on that. You can see that. So you get better technical signals. So there is a chance I'm going to get pushed around by very short-term moves that are just kind of noise, and I have to accept that with the smaller coins. But you know, the more you do it as well, the more you look at the markets and try to tune out the broader noise from the mainstream media and listen to people who know what they're talking about, like you, the better you will be, because you don't want to be. Their job is to sell you sort of scary headlines, and you know, that's what people want to read. They want to read what's going on, and it's what sells for the media. But that's not what helps you as an investor. So, you know, having a plan like the one you were talking about earlier is, you know, really important.
Awesome. We've got. Let's take a look next, if it's okay with you. Freeway Token.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is the FWT. Now, Freeway has been in a range again for quite some time. And it's, see, calling it out of this range right here, right now, would be a bit remiss, because, you know, if it's going to stay in a range for this sort of amount of time, then what are the chances today it's going to break out, is what I ask myself. And probably not, it's not very high. But what I like about this is, you know, it's corrected, but it's still not corrected much in terms of the way the big picture was looking. So this has quietly been trading a range, and it's still ascending in price action from the lows. So, you know, I don't think it will go much beyond, in terms of price action. I don't think it's going to sort of break out now. It's a little bit of a shame that it hasn't at least had a rally in the last, you know, few days or last week or so. So I would have preferred it to be trading up at 0.014 around here, given that everything else has rallied, but it seems to want to do its own thing. So this is really a non-correlated market, which again makes it even more interesting. But look, if we split the half of that range where I've got this line, we can see how it's symmetrically trading up and down, you know, through it. And so I would expect it to continue to do that and then eventually break out to the upside. Now, I haven't got an upside bias just because I want it to go up. The upside bias comes from the broader trend being bullish. So given that it's been going up, if it was the reverse, if that was coming to the downside, then a pattern like this would then break to the downside when it eventually moves. So, you know, for the moment, it's steady as she goes, but I think bigger picture, it will break higher.
Yeah, great. I'm very bullish on this one. There's some fundamental things that you need to hold the token or to unlock their superchargers, and they've made some changes with that, and they keep adapting and making some changes. And every time I read these changes they make, I can see all the amount of thought put into them. Basically, they're a platform that you can make a return on your investment by holding stable coins, or you can get a return on investment by holding Bitcoin and other things. In order to fully unlock that, you have to hold their token. So the use case is much stronger than a lot of projects have. And they are onboarding massive numbers of users now. Like, that's starting to really come together. And as people get in there and use this, and then they tell their friends about it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger in steamrolls. We do have a link below if you want to sign up using our link and you know, tune into one of our other videos or watch one of our past videos where we've gone into depth about Freeway Token and Aubit and why I like it so much. Really bullish on that one. I hold millions of tokens myself on Freeway Token because I expect it to do really well. And I'm just patiently waiting for it to break upwards and outwards and people really to start talking about it again and to start using the use case. And then at that point, it could go parabolic.
I think it's very interesting that it's non-correlated, because it's actually quite hard to find a non-correlated asset. It's one of the first ones that I've seen, other than say some that are just literally in downward trends and not rallying. But that one is just seems to want to do what it wants to do, which is kind of nice, really, because at least it's stable when everything is kind of moving down. It hasn't got as much volatility, it seems.
It could do really well even during the bear market. I don't know how it will do, and the reason is because during the bear market, will people be thinking about returns on, say, their USD stable coins or other things, and so they'll want to be able to hold some positions longer term and get a return on it. Well, in order to unlock that, they have to hold the Freeway token, and you have to hold a certain percentage of your value in the Freeway token. And so people don't think as much about the price of it so much as how much do I hold as a percentage of my portfolio value, which that kind of metric happened with Celsius, and it's happened with some other things, and it caused it to be able to go. Celsius did over 100x, and so it was just the right setup. In fact, Celsius did over a 200x, and so Freeway token, I don't know what its IDO price was. I know it's up from that. I just don't know if we're 10x or 40x from there, but I think it's still got plenty of room to run. Its market cap is still relatively small. And if they continue to deliver on their really high interest rates, then this token is going to go crazy.
So do you ever sleep? How can you do so much analysis on all these different coins? It's like
I wouldn't be able to do it if I was looking at the different networks, all the different markets that you look at, which is great having you on. That way, I've got my specialty, you've got what you're exceptional at, and our audience gets the benefit of hearing from both of us, which fits with the goal of creating the most informed audience in all of crypto and just kind of informing them what we're seeing going on, how I think about it, how you think about it, so that then they can make their own opinions and grow, So like a lot of people come into the space thinking they're just going to get rich overnight. That, number one, it doesn't usually happen overnight. Number two, it happens in correlation with what you learn, how do you learn to make decisions, and the smarter you learn to make decisions, then your wealth increases like that. Sure, you could be lucky, the person that bought some meme coin and it did 200x because they forgot about it, or it did 2000x, and oh my gosh, it's worth $5 million. The chances of that happening, you might as well play the lottery, because it doesn't happen very much. But if you learn to look at the markets and read it and literally understand where you're nearing a bottom and then buying and then holding for the right time frame, learning to understand when it's hitting a top or close to hitting a top and take profits out, then you learn to take smarter trades that you can benefit really well from. And whether you go from the fundamental side like me, that I'm a swing trader that holds for longer periods, or you decide price analysis and technical analysis and you want to trade in the short time frames, and want to be able to learn to trade all the different markets, that's up to you how you learn to handle it. Different people have different personalities and strengths for what they're good at. We're grateful to have Paul on here because it shows his strengths and just kind of creating that more informed audience that we're looking for. Real quick, did we cover all the audience suggestions yet? We didn't. Iagon, Solend, OGN are still on there. Do you mind if we blast through those three really quick?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So let's do OGN first. Is it Origin? Is it this one? Yeah, yeah.
It's this one.
Yeah. Okay, so again, this is one of the actually, this reminds me of the chart of Proton, which has done a very similar thing. It had a good rally and then a big retracement. It's stuck a stake in the ground here, which is good. It's starting to rally, which is good. It needs to take out this 0.46 level before I can sort of breathe a bit more easily about this being a bigger correction, because at the moment it's just a bounce, and it has been going down. So it's also caught between this high and this low. So, and what I mean by that is, what is the trend here? Is the trend bullish because it's going from here, or is it bearish because it's going from here? And it's difficult to work out. I don't think there's much more data on it. But in any case, I think I'm going to go with the bullish bias, just because I think this will get carried along with the broader market. And at least it's rallying here. At least it's not near its lows. So those are the positives that I can see on it. It's a very quick one, but there's not too much data to go on here. But as I say, I think it will rally here, and I would like to see it take out this resistance. Definitely here. That looks like a bit of a price spike, but 0.47 would be good. It would end this trend line as well, to make it a little bit, to end this basic downward trend here. So that's a tricky one, as you can see. I usually use more words when I'm not sure, and that's definitely did that there. So IAG is Iagon, is that the one?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
real quick, do you mind if I talk on that one real fast?
Oh,
for
yeah,
me,
sorry.
it's a buy, just because the general market, I think, is up. I'm a little bit more skittish on this one than others, but it has retraced 90% from its earlier year highs, and so the ones that happen in April, and so 90% retracement, like that's when I like to buy. Probably the team on this is strong, and they'll probably still be around, and so I do always think about that, and so I think this will get carried with a bigger wave, like Paul said. Okay, on to the next. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, no worries. Again, that's the advantage of having some background on the technology. So this is very simple. I mean, this is a downward trend. I can't touch it because unless the technology is good, and even if it is, I personally wouldn't, because downward trend, no signs of support. Yeah, there's a little green candle there, but that's not enough for a reversal, so I would be sitting on the sidelines until there's a bit more evidence. I don't know how long this has been trading for. I mean, it looks from the end of October, it's been a straight line down. That doesn't mean it's not good technology. I'd have to just do a bit more research, or I'd be on the phone to you, asking you what you think of it and whether there's a good time to buy, but technically not, unfortunately.
Yeah, this was in a narrative that I liked, which was data storage on Cardano. They aren't currently on Cardano, the whole Cardano ecosystem. Their token isn't even on Cardano yet. And so, I have a large bag of this that I've been holding since much, much higher prices. And what I learned when I go through this is I definitely don't sell it when the price gets crushed like this, and the price has got crushed. And so I just wait it out, and that has almost always done really well for me. I don't buy things that I can't afford to lose. Like if I lost everything and it went to zero, that it wouldn't mean that I'm like miss payments on whatever. It doesn't mean I can't feed my family. And so I do play with money that I can't afford to lose, that we never want to. So that when this happens, I'm like, shoot, I'm just going to let this probably going to take longer than I hoped for. And it's an extremely small market cap right now. Like I don't have the numbers on it, but the market cap's probably under $1 million. So it can swing back and go very much the other way, or it could just continue down to the gravestone. But several projects, when they've done this, and I've just held, twice it did go to the grave, but 8 out of 10 times it bounced right back up and were huge, huge gainers for me.
Yeah, and that's exactly why we were saying earlier about you've got to know that if there's not many people trading it, you can be pushed into a trend that actually will be reversed later on by just a few small positions. So with that caveat, it was an important point to make it.
For me, it would be a wait only from, I don't know how hard the team, I spoke to the team about 7 months ago. I'd have to speak with them again and just see if they're continuing to work hard and like the team's still doing strong, because sometimes the team runs out of funding because they have their team tokens. They're counting on selling those at a certain price. That price is then evaporated, and so sometimes the team moves on and the project goes to nil. It probably won't happen here, but I couldn't say buy on this unless I knew that they were still working strong. So for me, it's just a wait, and I'm just holding my tokens. It's usually worked out good that way, but 2 out of 10 times, because I tend to buy projects where I like the teams. I had one go completely to zero. I thankfully had actually taken all my profits out and then some, so I didn't lose any money on that. On this one, if it goes to zero, I haven't taken any profits out on this, and so it would be a zero for me.
Right.
Solend, this is a much happier one for me to talk about.
Yeah, no, I like this actually. It's kind of made its low. It's had its final spike. So this is what I like to see as an ending of a trend signal. Trend ending signal is when you have that final capitulation, which you're looking for people bailing out, the price spiking down, and then that being the end of the move. So we've got the stake in the ground that tells me, like, in contrast to the previous chart where I can't find any natural support and I can't see any price support. I want to know where I'm wrong. See, so the way I trade is, okay, I'll buy it here. If it breaks that, I'm wrong. So I'd be happy to do that because, yeah, okay, I might be wrong, but at least I know what my risk is and I won't be just kind of hanging on to a position without knowing anything about the fundamentals and knowing whether I've made a mistake. So this has made quite a nice low, a double bottom, small one, but it's actually very similar to the price action in Bitcoin and Ethereum before, and some of the other majors before they turned around. It made a very similar pattern, a very sharp move, and then this kind of stretched out W, which is unusual, and then it accelerated up. So I would like to see this. I hope it will trade higher for various reasons. Hope isn't always something you should be using when it comes to trading, but you know, the technicals does actually support a move higher. It could bump against some resistance at 2.5 because that's the prior low. So there's some guys who bought here who think, right, okay, I'm going to bail out when I get to 0. So you look for that as support and resistance reversing its roles. But ultimately, I think this could be a good long-term buy. Again, not much price action to go on, but an interesting enough low in a broader, bullish market.
Yeah, this one has all the right backers, Alameda Research and other big backers on this one. So when DeFi and Solana come back into the narrative, this one I think does exceptionally well. Unfortunately for me, my first purchase on this was around the $7 time frame before it went all the way up to $16. Or maybe I got in at 9 or something. It was on its way up and then retraced. I don't know where these sellers are coming from because when I was reading through the tokenomics on it, there were long pre-sale investor lockups. And so I missed something that there would be tokens available to sell that could bring the price down below its IDO price of $5. So if you're buying now, you're buying at half the IDO price, which is an exceptional thing on something that, when I'm able to get below IDO price on something that I really like, I get really excited. So I've been dollar cost averaging into more of it, and so in some ways I'm grateful for these lows because I've been able to increase my position size while it's low.
Brilliant.
Great. Awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I absolutely love it. And, all the best. And please do still put your picks in and we'll get to them.
Yes. So if you haven't already, make it rain on those like buttons. And also tell us which up to two projects you want us to look at next week. And we'll put them on the schedule. So if you're in the audience, you're ready to be a Rainmaker, join the Navy SEALs of crypto to level up your own crypto game. Do keep in mind this channel isn't for everyone. Our goal isn't to be the biggest YouTube channel, but it's to help to create the most informed audience in crypto, which we believe will lead to the wealthiest audience in crypto. So join us for this experiment, and it is an experiment. I don't know how this will end, but I know that as I dug into researching to become an investor first in real estate and some other things, that research led me to make way better decisions on average, which led me to way better results. The last 4 years in crypto, I've been doing that in crypto, and it's led me, especially my first year, I made a lot of mistakes, but I make a lot less mistakes these days, and it's led me to life-changing results, especially in the past 3 years. And my guess is these principles will work for you at home too. So thank you for joining us. Make it rain on that like button. Help us grow, because as we do, we're going to get more strategic relationships that then give us more giveaways to make it fun while we're here talking about the principles that create life-changing wealth through a technology that we're absolutely in love with, because if you're here, you're in love with crypto just like I am, and we're deep down that rabbit hole, having fun the whole time, except for really bad days. Those do happen, but especially when it comes up, we have a lot of fun days, and we're going to have a lot of those coming up. So stay tuned, and we will see you soon. No rain, no game.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit, right before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a Rainmaker should. Buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic, then dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. The time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the gain show. Sinking at this run cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. Naysayers come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. I'm sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crappy. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes it time fly by, years going so fast. This game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, but time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.